Okay, all right. So, Miron, excuse us, I forgot. So half the shi'ur is already gone, but at least we'll have the second half. Okay, we'll just give a background. We're talking about the commandment of blowing trumpets, both in times of offerings, korbanot, either machloket, either every day or only in holidays. And the second thing is to blow when there is trouble, tzaras from Israel, and specifically war. So let's now. אבל ראיתי להרמב"ם ז"ל, שכתב בימי המועד כולנו ברכי חודשים, היו הכהנים לבריאות תוקעים בחצוצרות, והלוויים אומרים שירה, נראה מדבריו, שדעתו שבשאר הימים אף הלוויים תוקעים בחצוצרות. So first of all, you see that he speaks only about Yemei Moed in V'chot Klei Mikdash. This he politely, yeah, and then Leviot, ואם עברו על זה הכהנים ולא תקעו בשעת הקורבן, וכן אם לא תקעו בעת הצרה, and again it seems that he understands it's Kohanim also בעת צרה, תתלו עשה זה. Good. Now let's go through some parts of the Minchat Chinuch that are very interesting. Look, he counts it only as one aseh. Look here. Look at the headline. Look at the headline. But that's what he holds. It's only one mitzvah that has two components, and as you see, he even ties them many times pretty harsh, like both bizman habayit al pi pshat, both by kohanim. He is tachlis, and he was toreach to give the same reason. Remember, he made an effort that it's both kavana. There's a common denominator, so he definitely holds, even pretty much organically. That's how he holds. It's one mitzvah.
אז איך זה עובד בפועל? יש יום תקיעה, נניח בקורבנות, נניח בקורבן תמיד של שחר ותמיד של בין הערביים. יום אחד בצהריים פורצת מלחמה.
So there'll be also in a war. What's the problem? What's the question?
האם אפשר לכוון בתקיעה של בין הערביים לצאת ידי חובת המלחמה? לא. עושים תקיעה עצמאית למרות שיש
קורבן. You have many details in one mitzvah. It's okay. Now let's see. לתקוע בחצוצרות. Here. לתקוע, first page. Okay, go back to first page. לתקוע בחצוצרות במקדש בכל יום בבוקר וכמו כן בשעת הצהריים. הרב המחבר נמשך אחר דעת הרמב"ם. Yeah, the Minchat Chinuch says classically. As usual, the Sefer HaChinuch usually, in most cases, not all cases, follows the Rambam's Shita in Sefer HaMitzvot. The שתי מצוות אלו הן מצווה אחת במניין תרי"ג. ודין חצוצרות במקדש מבואר ברמב"ם בהלכות כלי המקדש. ודין חצוצרות בעת צרה מבואר ברמב"ם בתחילת הלכות תעניות. ועיין בהרב המגיד, מגיד משנה, שם, שתמה על הרמב"ם שכללם במצווה אחת. וואי, ולמה לא ימנה בשתי מצוות שהם שני פסוקים? הם שני פסוקים. Our parsha, let's read it. וכי תבואו מלחמה בארצכם על הצער הצורר אתכם והראיתם בחצוצות ונזכרתם לפני השם אלוקיכם ונושעתם אויביכם. Very clear that the context is זיכרון לפני השם, תשובה, תפילה. And then, וביום שמחתכם ותקעתם בחצוצות על עולותיכם והיו לכם לזיכרון לפני אלוקיכם. אני השם. But we can't ignore that here you have ונזכרתם והיו לכם לזיכרון לפני some common denominator. Probably that's the anchor of the Chinuch and the Rambam. Yet still the Maggid Mishnah says, hello, you have two psukim, two commandments in Tariq. What? Anchor, ogin. That's the ogin. The fact that there's the same terminology as a reason, or as a purpose, not reason. Okay? Probably that's what causes him to give the same shoresh and also to understand consequently that it's one mitzvah with two details. Okay? Now, let's see. ומגיד משנה, ולמה לא ימנה בשתי מצוות שהם שני פסוקים? וכתב שהמצווה היא כללית ואומרים מכל מקום מניח בצריך עיון. עיין בפרי מגודים. look at the הערה על שתרץ קושיית המגנים על פי דברי המחבר ספר החינוך כאן. I have to be honest, I didn't read the Pri Megadim, but I gave you already an answer according to Divrei Sefer Chinuch. Maybe I'm mechaven to the Pri Megadim, meaning that there's the same reason, the same shorish, the same everything. Ve'ayen beSefer Parashat Drachim. Who wrote Sefer Parashat Drachim? Who wrote Parashat Drachim? Hamishne Lamelech. Ve'ayen beSefer Parashat Drachim. By the way, I got it to my bar mitzvah from my cousin, Arav Tzachi Lehman, who was then a yeshiva bachor in Merkaz, still single, and he, for my bar mitzvah, he gave me, I think that he and Miti, the married couple, gave me. I didn't learn from it much. Not stam, אני אומר את חטאי. עיין בספר פרשת דרכים, בדרך מצוותיך בתחילת חלק ראשון, שהביא גם כן שתמו על הרמב"ם חכמי הדורות, כמו שביתת יום טוב ותקיעה בראש השנה וביובל, אף שהפעולות שוות, despite the fact that you blow the shofar in the Yovel and the Rosh Hashanah, you do the same action with the same item, מאחר שזמנו של זה אינו זמנו של זה, since it's not at the same time, נחשבת כל אחת למצווה מיוחדת. אם כן כאן נמי, והאב המחבר נמשך אחר הרמב"ם כדרכו. But really, I think that if you follow the chinuch, even though it's two different times, I could say it's one mitzvah. It's the same concept. Whenever there is a need for zikaron, then you blow the trumpet. That's it. Now, והנה מצווה זו על הכהנים. Okay? והנה מצווה זו על הכהנים, שנאמר ובני אהרון וכולי. כן, that's written here, in our parashat. One pasuk before. ובהלכות כלי המקדש כתב הרמב"ם בימי המועדים, היו הכהנים תוקעים בחצוצרות, ובהלכות תעניות לא כתב הרמב"ם דכהנים תוקעים. I told you, intuitively, at least I could have said that there is a chiluk. I could have said that in בית המקדש כהנים and milchama, not necessarily. I could have said that, and indeed, the Rambam says, doesn't mention Kohanim blowing in Hilchot Taniyot. But look at what he said. ושמח עצמו על מה שכתב שם פרק ד' הלכה ט"ו, תקעו בני אהרון, אף ששם העיר במקדש עיין שם בהלכה י"ז. מכל מקום לעניין זה נראה די אין חילוק, כיוון די מצוות עשה על הכהנים, כמו שכתוב בתורה, וכל עניין הכהנים תוקעים. So the Minchat Chinuch is saying, look, I'm interpreting the Rambam based on what he says elsewhere in Hilchot Taniyot, even though there it talks specifically about blowing in the Mikdash. But yes, probably the Rambam is just like the Chinuch, that it's Kohanim in both. By the way, it makes sense since the Rambam says it's one mitzvah. So Dafka the Rambam, yeah. But let's say Magid Mishneh, who wants to advocate that it's two different mitzvot, perhaps you don't need Kohanim. Or at least we can think about it. Let's continue. Ve'eino mevoya im Kohanim ba'alei mumin ksherim leze. That's interesting. Ve'lo nizkar barambam. Rambam doesn't address the question whether a Kohen should be Kohen kasher to avoda, meaning maybe I see the blowing as part of avoda. And then, by the way, there is a gap between this and Zman Milchama. Okay? Okay. No, but if I require that the Kohanim are not Bali Mumin, no. I would say, if I need that they won't be with the Mum, then it's very tempting to say that it's part of Avoda. If I'm saying that I need Kohanim, but they could be Baalei Mumin. So I need the Kohen is the one that is going Lezikaron. That's all. Okay? So then it's both in Milchama and now let's see. Va'iti b'sifri kan plugta. So Minchat Chinuch says there is a machlokas tanaim in the Sifri. Rambam doesn't address the question. And the Chinuch also doesn't address the question. But the Minchat Chinuch says, I found a Sifri, the Rabbi Tarfon sover de Baalei Mumim ksherim. ורבי עקיבא סובר דה בעלי מומים פסולים ואלף מקרא אם כן הלכה כרבי עקיבא ובאת רבי טרפון הודע לו אם כן בעלי מומים פסולים ונראה גם בתעניות הדין כן not like what I said כי הם אחד ומבחירות אלו יפין לשם now of course but I'm saying the svara is harder ומכל מקום צריך לראות לרמב"ם שלא שישמיט זה ולא גילה דעתו ובפרט זה מבואר בספרי וצריך עיון. אוקיי. ופשוט המצווה yeah, just one second. I'm considering you know what, just because I don't want to miss something, we'll do something and then we'll go back. Go to the second page now. Let's read. Everything is interesting, by the way. All the Minchat Chinuch discussion here is important and interesting and lamdish. But let's now go to Minyan Hatkiot. You see Ot Chet, in the left side. Towards the end of his discussion in the mitzvah. Ve'ine atkiot, you have it? Yechezkel. Ve'ine atkiot ayu be'et hanisuch b'kol korbanot hatzibur kamvoar barambam de'al elu omrin shira ve'tok'in ve'ine kama tokim מבואר תקיעה תרועה תקיעה מיד איזה מן התורה אבל מה שמבואר ברמב"ם זה קוראים 9 תקיעות היינו 3 פעמים תקיעה תרועה תקיעה על כל פרק מיד איזה אינו מן התורה ורבנן תקנו כן okay at any rate you do it at the time of ניסוך of the נסחים נסחים of the one
אז איך הגענו ל-21?
why do you say 21?
הוא אמר כאן בחינוך שלא פוחתים מ-21 ולא מוסיפים ל-48
איפה ראית את זה?
בסוף הרע החינוך.
לא, החינוך עצמו.
כן, אבל עכשיו הוא עושה את החשבון.
לא, אז בסדר, אבל יש... but there is תמיד של שחר ותמיד של בין הערביים.
מצוין. אז קודם כל איך זה יוצא ייסוגי? שאלה מצוינת.
Right, 9 plus 9 is 18, so it's, how do you get 21?
בכל מקרה זה בעייתי כי זה ייסוגי. זה לא רק תמיד של שחר ובין הערביים, יש פה עוד אקסטרה.
So there's more. Okay, maybe you did the cheshbon before, okay? Maybe you did the cheshbon before when I skipped, but I want to focus here on the last two. Tit. V'ayin barambam, perek aleph milchot shofar halacha aleph. All right, look, we skipped places. The Sefer HaChinuch himself made the analogy to shofar, if you remember, though there is clear distinction, as we said. Chatzotzrot is only Kohanim. Shofar is every Jew. But the Zikaron, by the way, the Zikaron is a common denominator. Now let's see Ot Tet and Ot Yud and Yudal. V'ayen barambam milchot shofar shekatav ומצוות עשה לשמוע כל שופר וידוע מה שכתבו האחרונים די המצווה שניהם יחד התקיעה והשמיעה עיין בלחם איש לשם ובספר יום תרועה ראש השנה ובספר תורי אבן שם. Alright, a pause. I have a big chabur on this, not only me, a lot of rabbis, but I also have chavivut for it because I prepared. What is the commandment? To hear the shofar or to blow the shofar or both? Rambam in Tshuva makes a very, very strong statement. The mitzvah is only to hear. Only to hear, and that's the nusach of the bracha. But you know that the nusach of the bracha, according to some Gaonim and according to Rashi, is litkoa. So it's accordingly. The nusach of the bracha is accordingly. Now, some achroinim tried, like the Shagasaria that he's quoting here. They claim no. Even the Rambam holds that it's both. It's against the pshat of the Rambam in Tshuva. The Tokoya is, I'll tell you. Look, in a nutshell, but I don't want to go into it because it's an entire shi'ur. In a nutshell, rega, in a nutshell, when we say, and the Rambam also says that, the same Rambam that says that the mitzvah is only shmiya, and that tkiya is just a hechsher mitzvah, like the building of the sukkah. That's the analogy that he gives. But then there's a problem. Why, according to the Rambam, the tokea should be mechaven leotzi? You're not mechaven to anything. I just hear, and that's it. So there are many answers to that. Now, if you hold, I don't think it's the pshat of the Rambam, but if you hold either in the Rambam or in other Rishonim that the mitzvah is both tkiya and shmiya, then of course there is a big problem that the Rambam challenges. We have a din of shomea keoneh, but can I tell you, Yechezkel, I'm very busy today. Very, very busy. Please put tefillin for me. No, it's very simple. I give you, you're my, I'm mana you a shaliach, you're putting on tefillin on your flesh. So here it's a known thing that it doesn't hold water. Now, if there is a commandment on every Jew to blow, how does it help that you are blowing for me and you're mechaven to be motzi me? So a Hasidish Lamdish answer here. And by the way, it's not only a Rav Soleh, that the tkiya is also a form of tefillah. It's a tefillah with a, and here you could claim shomea keoneh. At any rate, I wanted to tie the hakira, whether it's tkiya or shmiya, in the very, very roots of Rosh Hashanah, as a Yom Simcha and Yom Din, meaning if I'm speaking about the hamlacha, then a celebration of hamlacha is the maisa of the tkiya. But if it's like Maimonides l'shitato, Maimonides says, we quoted him before. What is the reason? Uru yeshanim. Uru yeshanim mitardem. So definitely the mitzvah is shmiya. Because if it's Uru yeshanim mitardem atchem, the mitzvah is shmiya. If the commandment is Tru'ah Yom Hamlachat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then perhaps the mitzvah is at least also Tkiya. But if I understand that the mitzvah is Uru yeshanim mitardem atchem, then the mitzvah is shmiya. And the Rambam l'shitato. I won't go in, but here he says, many achronim say the mitzvah of shofar is both the tkiya and the shmiya. Rambam holds it's only shmiya. V'kan katav harav mechaber dechayavim litkoa. He points out that regarding chatzotzot, the commandment is litkoa. V'gam harambam b'ilchot anit katav de mitzvah le'ariya. Very nice. The famous Rambam that I said from the pulpit many times. Every time we gather as a community to say Tehillim, because there's a war. So I open Perek Aleph Ilchot Aniyot. Mitzvah taseh min haTorah liz'ok ve'le'ariya b'chatzotzot al kol tzara shelo tavo. U'midarkei haTshuva, and then the rabbis decreed to do Ta'anit. That's not me'aTorah. But me'aTorah liz'ok, which is tefillah, ule'ariya, to blow. I remind you that the Ramban in Sefer HaMitzvot, in his glossaries to the Rambam, ba'asagot shelo al Rambam, Rambam says there is a commandment to daven one time every day, mideoraita. Rambam says no, there is no commandment me'aTorah to daven every day. In one teretz he just says this. In the second teretz he says, yes, there is no commandment, but be'et tzara, it's me'aTorah. Why? Liz'ok ule'ariya be'et tzara. So it's liz'ok, להריע בחצוצרות. But he's medayek here, the Rambam says להריע, doesn't say לשמוע. Says להריע. So the Rambam makes a distinction here between how he defines the core of the mitzvah. אתה יודע מה זה, כן? הגרעין. The core of the mitzvah in shofar and the core of the mitzvah in חצוצרות בעצה. Let's continue. וגם כתבנו את זה ולא כתבנו שמה, וצריך עיון. צריך עיון, therefore he says. אם כל ישראל במקדש או בתענית מחויבים כל אחד לשמוע, או לא, במצווה רק לתקוע. Maybe the commandment is רק לתקוע. Now, look, if he says that the שורשי המצווה, the chinuch, is לכוון, and he makes the analogy to shofar, so it doesn't work that well. If no need that the people in the world will hear it, it's just, the Kohen to blow. So it could be zikaron lifnei Hashem. The focus is zikaron lifnei Hashem, not the people. That goes back to the Hakira and shofar itself. Is the blowing to wake us or for him? Let's continue. וגם יש כמה נפקמינה עם השמיעה והתקיעה שניהם יחד חיוב, או רק אחד. עיין במסכת ראש השנה ובראשונים, טור ובאחרונים, ותבין. וכאן לא נתבאר כלל. ובאתי רק לאור. He says, here, there's a plenty of lumdish discussion regarding the mitzvah of shofar. Is the commandment only blowing, only hearing, both? We see in Rishonim and Achronim a lot of discussion, and here he says, Nebech, I didn't see anything. I just saw that they say mitzvah le'ariya. I didn't see anything more. ואם עברו על זה ביטלו עשה. ומכל מקום אינו מזיק לקורבן, והקורבן כשר. It's not מעכב, it's not an avoda that is מעכב the korban. ומה שאין תוקעין העידנה בתעניות בחצוצרות. That's troubling. Because we saw Noheget Bizman HaBayit, and we asked Bishlama regarding the Korbanot. Okay, we can kind of understand, definitely you need a Mizbeach. But why Milchama? Why Davka Bizman HaBayit? So he says, Uma she'en tokim ha'idna b'chatzotzrot, at times of war, yeah? Why nowadays? We don't have that commandment, Midoraita. עיין במסכת תיינס ובראשונים, ואין כאן מקומו. ובעזרת השם, כל המצוות שבסדר זה דעתי לשנות עוד הפעם. Meaning, he felt that he went a little fast. Now look at Otet here. Otet down. Otet here, down. עיין במגן אברהם, שתמה, למה אין לנו נוהגים לתקוע בעת צרה? ועיין שם בפרי מגדים, באש של אברהם ובמשפטות זהב, מה שתרץ בזה. ועיין בעמק הנציב על הספרי כאן. Alright, so now that's the Zionist part that I wanted to share with you. And I think that's what the Pri Megadim answer is. I'll explain. When is there a commandment to blow at a time of a war? וכי תבואו מלחמה, where? בארצכם. So the Minchat Chinuch, he say, העידנה, אנחנו לא נוהגים לתקוע בחצוצרות. Where did the Minchat Chinuch live? not בארצכם. בסדר? כי תבואו במלחמה בארצכם על הצער הצורר. But let's dwell on this concept a little more. There is a famous Gemara in Horayos, very famous. There is a din of par elem davar shel tzibur. You know what it is. When I taught Horayot, fascinating Masechet. We finished all of it. Cute. Yeah, but we learned it with shi'urei Rav Lichtenstein and more. Par elem davar shel tzibur is a public error. And I want to define you, what does it mean, a public chatat? A public error must have two components. That the Sanhedrin made an erroneous ta'ut ruling, and that the majority of the people of Israel followed that erroneous ruling. You need these two components. Now, please focus on the following. If, let's say, there is a non-kosher food that one of the companies inadvertently made the wrong package. There was a wrong package. And the majority of the Jews bought and ate basing themselves on the wrong package. This will not be defined as a public error. It's an error that is done by the majority of the individuals, but it's still not considered conceptually a public error. The ruling of Beit Din, that is what defines it as a public error. And yes, you also need the majority actually doing that Aveira, so that we'll have here a public shgaga. Okay? Now comes the Gemara in Arayos and says the following. Let's say the Sanhedrin in Israel ruled an erroneous ruling, and the majority of the people of Israel followed that. Now, but there's only 2 million Jews in Israel, and there's 10 million Jews overseas, and they don't care about the Sanhedrin, and they didn't do that mistake. So the majority of Am Yisrael did not, but the majority of the people of Israel did. Says the Gemara in Yerushalmi in a very, very famous slogan, Kal Eretz Yisrael Zechatat HaKahal, Kal Eretz Yisrael Ikri Kahal, Kal Chutz La'aretz Lo Ikri Kahal. Okay? By the way, it works the opposite way too. Let's say the Sanhedrin made an erroneous ruling, and Dafka the Jews, the 10 million Jews overseas, they're very listening to the Sanhedrin, and they all followed that false ruling. But Dafka the Jews here, they're chutzpahdik, and they said, they ruled that now, we're not following their ruling. And it turned out good, because it was an erroneous ruling. So, even though the majority of the Jews followed the erroneous ruling of the Sanhedrin, no, you need a majority of the people of Eretz Yisrael. Lekula velechumra. Because Kal Eretz Yisrael ikri kahal, Kal Chutz La'aretz lo ikri kahal. We see the same concept in other cases too. Not everywhere. Yeah, and it's good to define where this is the criteria and where not. But let's say regarding Kiddush HaChodesh, Rambam stresses that if, he says even a more critical thing, if there would have been 1 minute that there wouldn't be any Jew in Israel, it's a catastrophe in terms of Kedushat HaMoadim. Because Am Yisrael, for that sake, is the one that is here in Israel. So we see it in Kiddush HaChodesh, we see it regarding Pari Lem Davar Shel Tzibur. Now let me share with you another place where maybe it's applicable. You know, there's a famous sugya. Do we have to say Hallel and Yom HaAtzmaut with, or not? Rav Ovadia in a tshuva says, Rav Ovadia, if you say without a bracha. Why? He gives there several reasons. One is the Ma'aratz Chayut, that to say a bracha, it's only in a miracle that is changing the nature. This Ma'aratz Chayut, with all the respect, is contradicting a Meforish Gemara. Because the Gemara says clearly, both in Megillah and in Erchin, that in Purim, basically you should say Hallel. And in Purim, there was no change of nature. So the Ma'aratz Chayut directly contradicts the Gemara. But okay, that's one argument of Rav Ovadia. But the other argument, he says, hey, wait a minute, in 48, the miracle was not to Klal Yisrael, he says in 48. Because Dafka, the majority of the Jews, were not here. So there was indeed a miracle of Hatzalah. Milchemet HaShichur was a Hatzalah. There was a threat to all the Yishuv. But That's not and only on a nes that is down to Klal Yisrael, only on that kind you say a halal with a bracha. Not a halal to communities. Halal to communities, they say halal Purim de Frankfurt without a bracha. But here there are two arguments against Rav Ovadia. Two arguments. A, could you really say that what happened in Yom HaAtzmaut was a nes just to the people that were residing and living here? It affected, and even Mimita L'Chaim, it affected even a Jew that is in the States. Now he could be saved Mimita L'Chaim. Okay, so you can't, so l'chora, it's mamish, building a national home to the Jewish people is a nes l'klal Yisrael. Maybe you would say that's not considered Mimita L'Chaim, but to Klal Yisrael, but I think even regarding this matter, he's wrong, with all the respect. But another way to confront Rav Ovadia's argument is to say, hello, Kal Eretz Yisrael. This is defined as a nes to Klal Yisrael. Why? Because Kal Eretz Yisrael Ikre Kahal and Kal Chutz La'aretz Lo Ikre Kahal. Now, it seems even relevant because I'll connect it to here. If you say that it's noeg, it's not noeg in Chutz La'aretz, this trumpet thing, because a war, that's what we're talking here, a war is davka regarding a war ba'aretzechem, Kal Eretz Yisrael Ikre Kahal, Kal Chutz La'aretz Lo Ikre Kahal. So it's true that it says here Bizman Habayit. It doesn't say Be'eretz Yisrael, which I would have preferred, because we'll be left of the. So nowadays, the Chorah, according to this cheshbon, we should blow the trumpets, even though there is no bayit. So here, for this, therefore, you could say the svar that I said in the beginning of the shi'ur, that maybe it's the same. It's according to them, it's one mitzvah and one root. And therefore, it's l'zikaron lifnei Hashem, so you need zman habayit. I must say, though, that according to the Magid Mishnah, that it's two separate mitzvot. I think it's very appealing to say there will be noeg in every war that is to Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Now, I want to conclude. It's chaval that we didn't make it to read the Minchat Chinuch that were in the middle, about the Taniyot, the Musafin, and this. But here I'll say another he'ara. This pasuk, uveyom simchatchem uvemoadechem, uvrashei chodshechem. All the parashanim were struggling with it. What is uveyom simchatchem? What does it mean? Because it says uvemoadechem, uvrashei chodshechem. So Rabbi Yosef Bechor Shor says simchatchem dehainu b'moadechem. The Chazal are saying Shabbat, but Shabbat is a problematic answer because it's not that clear that there is a din simcha on Shabbos. It's a whole discussion. There is a din oneg in Shabbat, not din simcha, according to many. So he actually mentioned the Minchat Chinuch. We'll flip to the second page. Second page. רגע, כשהוא מדבר על שבת.
למעלה משמאל בצרות.
מה, באיזה עמוד? סליחה, אולי זה...
בעמוד השני, בעמוד ע"ו. בטור השמאלי, בשורות הצרות. גם שמחתכם אלו שבתון. בנתן אומר, אלו התמידים.
וראיתי בספרי, כאן, פסקה המבואר, אלו שבתות, אבל אלו התמידים. חזינן יש פלוגתא בזה. תנא קמא סובר דווקא בשבתות ובימים טובים ובראשי חודשים, ורבי נתן סובר בכל יום. אוקיי. למה ברמב"ם דין זה דשבת? אוקיי. At any rate.
אבל לפני כן הוא אומר שיכול להיות שהימים טובים זה מדאורייתא, וכל יום זה מדרבנן.
So now, one last second.
שוטר שמעתי.
So here, there isn't even Ezra that all the Zionists, that some of the Zionist rabbis are quoting as a source to celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut. Because look at what the Ibn Ezra does here. Something brilliant in terms of pshat. He says, says the Ibn Ezra the following. And I just remind you, need the context here. What was the previous pasuk? Remember we had the Chakir, it's one mitzvah, two. וכי תבואו מלחמה בארצכם על הצער הצורר אתכם, קראתם ונזכרתם וזה, וביום שמחתכם ובמועדיכם, right? So the Ibn Ezra reads it continuously, makes a link, and he says, וביום שמחתכם ובמועדיכם, look at what he says, ששבתם מארץ אויב, או ניצחתם אויב הבא עליכם, וקבעתם יום שמחה, כי ימי פורים, ושבעת ימי חנוכה, לא משנה, שבעת ימי שמחה, רק המעתיקים, חז"ל פרשו ביום שמחתכם שבת. So the Ibn Ezra says, what is Yom Simchatchem? That's the first word in this pasuk. It has to do with the previous pasuk. It's a simcha, a holiday that you established after you were saved in a war. You came back from Eretz Yisrael. Ukvatem Yom Simcha ki Yemei Purim. So from this pasuk, Ibn Ezra interpretation, some rabbis said that's also, they say, okay, that's the Kal V'chomer Mimita L'chaim. So that's another source that is brought, and of course that makes a chibur between the two psukim too, the way the Ibn Ezra interprets it. Okay. מה קורה? אין, מה יהיה? אני לא אכפת לי, מצידי...
ושנתפלל.
לא, מצידי להמשיך בוא נקרא, נותנים לנו, נותנים לך תיקח, אתה יודע. לא יודעים, נותנים לך תיקח, אז בוא, we can continue, להפך, אני מבסוט. אני מבסוט. אז בואו, let's go back to the chinuch here. ואיני מבין, second page, עמוד עיני, yeah? It's not, so, no, it's first page, excuse me. First page, ואיני מבין. You see the ואיני מבין? Yeah. ואיני מבין, you get it? You have it. ואיני מבין דברי הגמרא ולא פסק הרמב"ם. כיוון דבדין זה דחצוצרות שווים מועדים לתעניות. והרמב"ם הוא נכלל במצווה אחת, ואפילו אם אין שתי מצוות מכל מקום, הם שווים בדיניהם כדכתיב בקרא. אם כן, כיוון דהוא מדברי קבלת במקדש צריך להיות שופר עם החצוצרות, אם כן, מה נפקא מינה בתעניות ובכל המועדים להרמב"ם, או לדברי אמר בכל יום כאשר יבואר בסמוך, רב אלי לבאר במקדש, הן בתעניות, הן בכל יום, היה שופר עם החצוצרות. כן, הוא טוען וגם הרמב"ם אינו מבין דין זה דבעינן שופר עם חצוצרות, רק בדין תענית, ובלכות כלי המקדש כאן כתב דין חצוצרות במועדים, וכתב דין לא כתב זה, ואיני יודע למה, כיוון שהוא מדברים, כן תמיד אבל אליהו, זה צריך להיות. So again, he's struggling with the relationship between these two components.